from the University of San Diego. Robert is the founder of a project called HOST, which stands for Homeless Outreach Transition Program, which is dedicated to helping college students struggling with homelessness. We have Shirley Fan Chan from the University of Massachusetts Boston's UAccess program. Shirley has been the director of UAccess at UMass Boston since 2012. She oversees the office that offers services to students in need of non-academic support. This office is one of its kind among higher education institutions across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We have Shema Hanebutte from Tacoma Community College. Shema is the Dean of Counseling, Advising, Access, and Career Services at Tacoma Community College. She has many years of experience within various areas of student services. And prior to working in higher education, she built workforce development initiatives that focused on increasing capacity in healthcare programs within higher educational institutes. She is passionate about developing partnerships that increase access and success for students in college setting. We have Nicole Hindes from Oregon State University Human Services Resource Center. Nicole is a first-generation college student. Go Hoosiers. MED. After a few years of working in university residence life settings, she started working in nonprofit college access and retention. This was first at Youth Build, and then she coordinated post-secondary efforts at Larkin Street Youth Services, a homeless serving organization in San Francisco. Nicole currently works at Oregon State University, overseeing an office that provides services and resources to students experiencing food and housing insecurity. And we have Louis C. from the Bruin shelter. Louis is a PhD candidate in mechanical engineering at UCLA. His research focuses on optimization of solar thermal energy power plants. Easy, super easy stuff. He's also he managed to find time when he's not doing that stuff to be the co-founder of the Bruin shelter, a shelter for homeless students that is run and governed entirely by UCLA students. It's the first youth shelter in West Los Angeles and the second student-run shelter for young adults in the nation. So we'll start with Robert.
Thank you. Well, first and foremost, I'd like to thank Sarah and her staff for putting this event together, especially Sarah for showing so much courage and leadership in this subject of food and housing insecurity for college students. Thank you, Sarah. Well, again, my name is Robert Arca, and I am from the University of San Diego, but I am a student. I'm an undergrad student who came back to school 3 years ago, started at San Diego Mesa Community College, and that's actually where I found out about the problem of housing insecurity. And in the state of California, this is a very serious problem indeed. So when I first heard about this problem, my first reaction was, this cannot be, not in America, right? So I went and talked to my peers in student government, and we decided to do something about it. But let's show a quick video. Let's take a quick look at this video. It'll be a lot better than me talking, by the way.
The problem of homelessness is not getting better, but a lot worse in the United States, and as such, it affects all levels of society, including college students that are forced to quit school due to financial struggle. The solution? HOST, Homeless Outreach Student Transition Program. This emergency program provides students in need with short-term and long-term accommodation, along with basic food supplies. Initially, vouchers will be given to students in need for temporary accommodation of 7 to 10 days. Afterwards, case assessments will then be provided by social workers who will work directly with the students going forward in order to secure permanent housing for the rest of the semester.
Since 2013, HOST has led 2 food drives to combat hunger at Mesa College, created a food pantry for anonymous accessibility for college students, hosted a Thanksgiving feast for homeless students, and created a referral list for resources for homeless shelters and food pantries across San Diego.
Host will be 100% funded by donations. As we enter into an agreement for services with a college or university, the schools will fund no less than 50% of the cost to run our program in their campuses. We expect to help 40 students over the next school year. In the second year, we want to increase the scope of our services and the number of students helped per year to 200. After 5 years, our goal is to have permanent affordable housing for at least 500 students attending different community colleges or universities across San Diego. Going forward, Host is in the process of incorporating as a 501c3 nonprofit organization, seeking funding to implement our pilot program at one or more community colleges in San Diego to provide short and long-term living arrangements for homeless college students to prepare them for a better future.
No? Okay, well, I hope you liked the video. It was good? Thank you. Go ahead, feel free. Okay, here we go again. All right. So, what's the problem? Well, in the state of California, it's a big, big problem. We have 112 community colleges. And with that, we have a great and huge student population. And what is sad is that almost 200,000 of those are homeless students. Second problem, there are no dorms in community colleges. Third problem, there's zero affordable housing in the state of California. That just does not exist. So who are these people that are suffering from insecurity, housing insecurity that is? Well, these are just regular, very normal, average young people that are trying to do the right thing. They're just trying to stay in school, they're trying to graduate and move on with their lives. But stuff, dude, does happen, right? And when problems come around, they can happen at any time. They can happen at the beginning of the semester, they can happen 2 weeks before finals. The idea is that when those problems happen, regardless of their background, we have a plan in place to help them out. Again, these are, for the most, young, regular, good people, some of them even honor students. And all they're trying to do is go to school, and all we need to do is try to keep them stay in school, right? Very simple. All right, talking about simple. Somebody yesterday, one of the panelists was saying, okay, so what we need to do, give it to me straight. Tell me. 1, 2, 3, here it is, 3 things, very simple. We need to stop students from quitting school. We need to have an emergency plan in place. And we need to get creative. We need to find affordable housing. End of story. 1, 2, 3. It doesn't get any simpler than that. All right. First, let's stop the bleeding. Okay? Let me just play a little scenario for you. Here comes Susan. Susan happens to be an honor student. Susan also happened to be in a relationship that got her pregnant and kicked out of her house. So Susan is overwhelmed, goes to her favorite professor and says, Mrs. Jones, I'm here to say goodbye. So Professor Jones listens to Susan's problem, and after that says, well, gee, Susan, I'm very, very sorry for your troubles, and you're a great student. I wish you luck. Come back when you're ready. Right? Wrong. That's not what we want. What we like to see is Professor Jones says, no, hold on a second, Susan. You don't need to quit school. I know you have a very serious problem in your hand, but let's just take one thing at a time here. First of all, I think I can find you a little shelter. I think I can find you a place for you to stay for the next few days. I can get you some food right away. And let's get some professional advice on this. After that, with a little bit of luck, we're going to be able to find you permanent housing for at least for the rest of the semester. Now, that will be a much better answer, don't you think? I personally think so. So, on the long run, this is where the cool stuff comes. This is where we can really make a difference, okay? this is where we have the opportunity to create solutions for the long run. But we need to bring in the real estate people on board. Okay, we need to create affordable housing. Now, just like any good plans, we're gonna have some roadblocks ahead of us. Okay, the federal government is gonna have to figure out the definition for homeless people. Right now, we have, like I said, almost 200,000 homeless students in the community college system alone. If you were to add that, the University of California system, where you have the UCLA, the UC Davis and so forth, UC Berkeley, and on top of that you add the Cal State system for, Cal State Long Beach, San Diego State University. Now the number could reach probably 500,000, easy. So we need to do something about this. And 30 seconds away. And the next is we need to deal with how college and university systems deal with this. I'm happy to see that many of you represent different colleges and students across the nation that are proactive and trying to do something about it. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case in the state of California. In California, we're still doing research on the subject. So that has to get a little going. Last but not least, once again, we need to involve real estate people. We need to provide incentives, but we also need to be creative when we approach the owner of a building. We can't just go up to the owner of an apartment building and say, hey, listen, we need some of your units to house some college students, because they can just turn around and say, Robert, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to create a new frat house in my building? Okay. So no, we cannot have that approach. We got to be a little more creative. We have to be able to say, no, these are people that have been screened already. These are good students in good standing, and they're just going through a little bit of trouble, and they just need a place to stay. And this is what we have in plan, and this is how we want to address this. I think that if we can do that, we should be in good shape, and get to our objective. And the people back home wanted me to make sure that I put our information up front, because we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm not expert by any means, and so if any of you, which are the experts, can provide us with suggestions and ideas, that's my email right there, my phone number. Please let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much.
And Shan at UMass Boston's UMass.
Good job, David. I want to let you know, if you expect me to talk about your access, you have to wait to come to my breakout session. This is the marketing piece that I'm going to talk to you about. Because I realized that I'm doing 2 different panels, so I say, let's talk about something else right now. My day job is running your access at UMass Boston. But I also have a side job, which is something that I'm very passionate about. Which is I'm also the chair of the Massachusetts Post-Secondary Homeless Students Network. Is under the National Association of Education for Homeless Children and Youth. You can see the acronym is NACY. I'm actually the member of NACY's network from the national branch. The reason why I want to talk about that is I know some of the state among this audience might not have the network yet, and I want to really talk about how valuable the network can be and how actually enhance my job at UAccess at UMass Boston. Because I'm very big in creating credibility. The network actually helps us to create credibility to raise the awareness of homeless college students in the state. First and foremost, creating this network was no-brainer. As a matter of fact, if you ask my co-partner in Massachusetts, she would tell you that I corner her in the corner to ask her to partner with me. It is true, but it's a reason for that. As a state employee, I was told by my vice chancellor, Shirley, you cannot do what you used to do in your old job. I used to do policy work too, in domestic violence and homeless young children. So that was my old gig, and the new gig coming in, I realized that the McKinney-Vento Act didn't extend it to post-secondary students. So 2013, I cornered one of my partner in crime, who happened was the executive director of a policy group in Massachusetts who advocate for children to access public education. No brainer, she would be my partner. So we created the Massachusetts network. We brought in all our old contacts from the Kinevangel Steering Committee, from the Department of Education, all my state partners from my old jobs. And also, I start to invite higher education institutions partners. Now, this is such a big piece that I actually had to thank them being part of it. Without them, I didn't have the credibility. I didn't have the Spark network in Massachusetts where they are now. To make it simple, someone knows the audience actually from Massachusetts, my delegate in Massachusetts, yes. They had experienced my cold call. I cold call people just like a salesperson. And a lot of time, people had no idea who I was, why I called them out of the blue. But those cold calls actually helped them to understand why we need to do this, and eventually they joined the network. Under the network, I created a post-secondary institution subcommittee. So basically, the first stage for that is for me to bring all the state universities and community colleges together to really get to the table to talk about what exactly happening in your campus. What is your experience? What have you done or had not done yet? What was your inspiration to make this, to move this forward? Now, because of that subcommittee, I was able to collect all those information, bring it back to the network. We see ourselves at the network level is a think tank. It's a thought leader to advise the key stakeholders, including state legislators. When I visit the state legislators before I had this network in place, the first question was, Shirley, what was the data? Where was the number? Could you tell me how big this population you're talking about? Of course, I opened my mouth with a hole. I had talked to Zakia numerous times back then, 2013. The only number we got was from the financial aid office, and it was so underreported that I knew I couldn't use that numbers to convince the legislators. And that was one of the challenges that we had. So because of that, the network design that we create an action plan. So what was the action plan? We have 3 buckets in our action plan. Is creating a best practices approach across the state, collecting data, which is the data and research project that we have been launching ongoing since 2013. The third part is what the policy change that we want to implement in Massachusetts, and hopefully in the long run affiliate with NACI to move the agenda forward. So that was our agenda in Massachusetts. Now with the subcommittee, I was able to collect information, I was able to get all the work that we need to do through the subcommittee, and along the way, we created a single point of contact. Now the single point of contact was something that we had talked about all along at the NACI level, and coming to the state level, it was completely new to Massachusetts. But it's not something that my single point of contact colleague, they didn't know, because they were doing it every day. They just didn't have a label, they didn't have a role that they can put in to name it, to label it. My role actually was helping them to identify themselves and label themselves as a single point of contact. So once I have the process in place, they went back to their supervisor, the vice president, the vice chancellor, and told them, like, hey, Shirley from UMass Boston asked me to fill out this questionnaire. Guess what? We don't have a single point of contact on campus. So maybe we can be the single point of contact since I'm doing this anyway. So that was a great convincing part to help them to get that approval and then bring it back to me and say, hey Shirley, I will be the single point of contact under this network. So currently I have 16 single point of contacts in Massachusetts among community colleges and state universities who has agreed that they will serve. Now, we still continue to outreach, we'll still continue to reach out to the campuses who had not been able to identify one person yet. So that's the first phase that we start as a network. So the second phase, which happened in January this year, I was very happy to engage private institutions. Now, private institutions has a different business model, has a very different idea about serving disadvantaged students. It just happened, one of my network member who moved job, she went to a private institution, so we talked about, hey, hey, how can we invite private institutions to this dialogue, because we need to open it to all the institutions. I don't care if you're private, making money or not making money. We need to have this conversation. So in January, I was able to launch the private institution subcommittee and invite a couple of private institutions in this subcommittee, and I learned a lot. I have to say, I really learned a lot about what private institutions struggle, challenges, and what was the barriers that they see themselves serving this population. And as a matter of fact, last week I had my second meeting, and I have a very prestigious university joined me, and I don't want to name it yet because Sarah doesn't like that university. And you know which one, right? But eventually I would get them on board, and hopefully, as a matter of fact, the person who come to my subcommittee, she expressed interest as a single point of contact, which I was very proud of her, from a prestigious university. I just need to now help them to engage to go through the process. So once this set in place, and I'm hoping that we will have more information, more data together through the network and present to legislators. So I have to say, I know I'm doing, Sakia did that to me, I'm going to do that to her now, even though she's not here, shout out to her. She is a great inspiration person who really helped me to collaborate this effort. She is sitting on my network as one of my members too. So we work hand in hand to make sure that our network will also fulfill what NACY's network as a whole. So I'm really encouraging you all, if you're from different states, if you know your state doesn't have network yet, please contact Sakia. We have a website. I know I'm doing that because I have a reason, because I'm a board member of NACY, so I can do that. We have a website that you actually can go to the higher education track and look down the website. We have 17 networks right now. So pick anyone that's close to you, take a look at the website and see if you want to talk to anyone through those networks. I myself would be more than happy to talk to you how about the network, how you establish it, how you bring people together. So, and my time's up.
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share with you some of the work that we're doing at Tacoma Community College in partnership with the Tacoma Housing Authority. So right now we're running a pilot program. It's called the College Housing Assistant Program, and this program provides housing vouchers, which are subsidies for students at TCC. So it allows them to be enrolled at TCC, receive these housing vouchers, and continue with their education. So these vouchers are targeted at students that are homeless or almost homeless. So TCC is not unique as far as having a population of students that are suffering from housing insecurities, and we, as lots of other communities, are having struggles with affordable housing. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about TCC, how we got to the partnership, and then I'll talk a little bit about what the requirements are for the project. So TCC is a mid-sized institution in an urban setting. We are in Tacoma, Washington. We have about 8,000 students. TCC is known within the state as being incredibly innovative. We are usually the ones that are saying, hey, we have a problem with this, or oh, we're thinking about this. Let's try it. And I think the thing that I love the most about my institution, if there's something that's going on, they'll put money towards it. They'll say, let's try it, let's do a pilot, let's see if it works. If it doesn't work, who cares? We learned something from the pilot program. So we're heavily engaged in our community, as is Tacoma Housing Authority. So it was a natural fit when we found out that we were having problems with housing to actually talk to the Housing Authority. So what we entered into was an agreement for a 3-year pilot to provide 25 housing vouchers for qualified students, and then to reassess once we got done with the pilot. So now I'll talk a little bit more about the program. We launched in fall of 2014, so the conversation started before I even started at the college. I started in 2013, so the conversations had started before I arrived. So for the program, all of the students need to meet the basic HUD requirements, and then there are some TCC requirements. And our requirements are that the student be full-time, and full-time counting is 12 credits. They need to make satisfactory academic progress, and we set that at a 2.0, and all of our students are well above a 2.0. Most of them are at 3.0. They also had to have applied for federal financial aid, and they have to commit to the case management that is a part of the program, because all of them are assigned completion coaches as part of the program. So when we do the vouchers, we run the application period. We do that 2 times a year, and we start a wait list for the program. The vouchers, of course, go to the homeless students first, and we do that by way of lottery. And then we do a lottery for the almost homeless students. And the list moves pretty quickly because, as you can imagine, the students that aren't getting the voucher usually aren't staying in school. I mean, they end up dropping out of school. So our list is usually flowing pretty quickly. So one of the beauties of the program, and me being the single point of contact for the campus, is that a lot of the supportive services and the wraparound services that support the program are housed in my area. So I get to tell people, hey, we're going to do this. I don't have to ask, would you do this for me, or could we do this? So within my area, I have the advising department, so we do intrusive advising. So all of the students entering into TCC have mandatory advising. Every quarter they're assigned an advisor. I have 6 mental health counselors on campus. I have career services, I have disability and access services, and I also have the completion coaches that provide the case management. The coaches, within their role, they're meeting with the students, they're talking to the students, they're providing workshops. We're working on the stigma of being homeless and poverty. We're providing mandatory financial literacy workshops for these students, and we're also making connections on campus and outside of the community. It's important to have a champion. If you don't have a champion for these students, it just doesn't work. Students get bounced around. You need to have a champion. So while this pilot has been small, it's been incredibly effective because we're actually retaining our students, and students are starting to graduate, which is really exciting. We've built databases because the program's small, there's a lot of students we can't help, but as we've built databases for resources, we can share that with all students. So we're building databases of shelters, of places to get food, places for emergency assistance. Oh yeah, another thing that I have, emergency grant. So I'm responsible for that for the campus also. So I'm able to align those resources. This program's a win-win. We're able to get students graduated. We're able to help them with transfer. We're able to move them into employment. And it's a win-win for HUD and for the Tacoma Housing Authority because they're able to reuse these vouchers. So we graduate students and we move on another group of students to use the vouchers. So here's a little bit about the numbers. The program's a struggle because everything is constantly in motion, and there's really no dedicated staff short of me, my admin, and the completion coaches. And it is very, very labor intensive, but worth every little bit of it when you realize that student that's sleeping in her car with her 3-year-old is graduating and has gone on to the Evergreen State College. So within the program, out of the 25, we've had 3 graduates so far. We've had 4 students, unfortunately, that were not able to persist, and we still follow up with those students so that they know that they can come back and we can try to provide supports later. And at the end of spring quarter, we have 3 more graduates. So students are making it through the program. So next steps, scaling this up. So we're having conversations about expanding the program. Our local housing authority is ready to forgo the pilot and just start awarding more vouchers for students. We're super excited about that. We're going to continue building these fabulous partnerships across the community. We need to tell the student story. It's just like I can sit here and I can talk all day long. You don't want to hear from me. You want to hear from the students. I am going back and I am building a housing intervention team. It's just like we can't be this one-man show. We need more people at the table. And I was approached about a month ago by a group of students, and they want to develop a housing task force. So that's going to be another thing that we're going to do. Our college recently bought a data analytic tool called Civitas, and we're going to be using Civitas to help with those early alerts and to make sure we're able to track this group of students. And another exciting partnership is our local housing authority is discussing with University of Washington Tacoma, which is our local big transfer institution, a voucher program. So we'll be able to try to provide that bridge, because I have a dedicated advisor that works with UWT, provide that bridge between TCC and UWT so students can continue that voucher. Because what we're trying to do is help those students graduate and earn a living wage. So, thank you.
I hear from Shirley Hindes from Oregon State University.
Nicole Hindes.
Sorry.
It's fine. You just like to call people Shirley. It's not good.
I can be Shirley too, though. I have certain skills.
Right. So, anyway, hi, I'm Nicole, and I am coming from Oregon State University, and I just want to be like really open and transparent that I have been there less than 3 months, and I'm speaking on a lot of really hard work that other people have done and other people have laid the groundwork for. So. Oregon State is a really special place. I think that we tend to do a lot of innovating, just like Tacoma, and you're going to see that in this program that I'm going to talk about today. Things you should know about Oregon State: we are the land-grant institution in Oregon. We recently went through some pretty big enrollment growth, so we went from about 20,000 students to about 30,000 in 10 years. Which is a big change not only to our campus experience, but also to our community. And so the HSRC has really been around while that change has been happening, because there's been some real needs that have come out of that. The other thing that's really relevant to this conversation is the way that my office is funded. So at Oregon State, what happens is all of the student fees are one big pot of money. And there's a group of students that decide what they're going to do with that pot of money. And it tends to be this really kind of like incubator sort of space, which is really cool. It also means that like every year the counseling center goes and requests their budget. And like in theory the students could say no, I mean they wouldn't, but like that's kind of the structure and the culture there. And so that means that at certain points the students realize that, hey, there's this need, we're seeing this with our friends, we're seeing this with folks in our classes, we should do something to fix it. And the history of my office is out of that committee and a group of students who decided that they wanted to address this need. So I'm here today to talk about the emergency housing program that we have at the HSRC. And this is a really strong partnership that we have with University Housing and Dining Services. They essentially hold 2 open spaces for us on campus. And this is a commitment that they've made. Again, we have really high enrollment trends, and they commit to holding those spaces open to the best of their ability, which is pretty solid, so that when students come to our office in need, we can get them in there. And so the way that process looks is that a student will come into our office who is foreseeing a problem, either like immediately experiencing homelessness or about to be experiencing homelessness, and they'll come and talk to staff about what is bringing them to this kind of place in life. And we have a pretty simple intake form that kind of susses out some of the filtering that we do. So if a student is in a dangerous situation, like say stalking or something like that, because it's in a community setting, they wouldn't necessarily be a good fit for that program. And so then we direct to other resources. And if they have potentially like a conduct issue from a prior year where they weren't a good fit in a community, again, only if it's like a community safety risk, then that would be another thing where we would potentially turn them away from this resource and then direct them to other ones. So we do the assessment in the office. They don't have to approach University Housing and Dining with what's going on. Then we email to like make sure that the space is available and ready to go and clean and linens and that sort of thing. They usually do an internal check with their records just to kind of double check that conduct piece again. And then they'll approve the process, and we'll have the student stay in one of those 2 rooms on campus for a minimum of 28 days. And the way that that conversation happens is we're talking with the student about like, what are your plans? What are your options? What are some things that you might want to consider? And we, along the way, like have them thinking about like, okay, well, maybe you should sign a contract with housing and dining because this could be a more permanent space. It wouldn't be in one of those 2 rooms, but that's a part of that partnership, right? So we're doing that coaching about getting the students to consider that as an option at the same time that they trust that we wouldn't abuse the resource, right? And so initially we start out students with maybe like 2 weeks and then kind of extend out along the way, but that way we have that connection to students so they can be kind of checked in with about how they are in their process and have they identified what their plan is going to be when this time runs out. Through UHDS, we pay $20 a night for this. That's billed to my program, right? So that's student fee money that funds my office. This is a bargain, but this really speaks to, again, the culture of care at Oregon State and how folks really identify that like this is a priority and they're willing to kind of forego profits to really look after students, which is really great and means that we really value those partnerships and really want to work hard to make sure that we maintain them. In terms of issues that potentially might come up, I think that I checked with someone before I left, and we had like maybe 2 incidents where someone kind of damaged the room or caused some sort of problems, which over the history of the program, like is better than the average student population that they see, right? So like that's just not a concern that they have with the students that we place in there, and they trust the assessment that we do about fit, and you know, we continue to make sure that we're doing that well. Yeah, I think that's all I've got on that one. Happy to take questions, happy to follow up as needed. I'm really proud of this resource and being able to offer to students, and it works well.
Okay, this is Shirley C. Louis C. from the Bruin shelter.
Yeah, well, yeah, let's get into it. Let's see what we have here. You can go to the next one. Well, I mean, from a statistics standpoint, I mean, we've heard about the issue of homelessness on college campuses from a lot of wonderful speakers already. You know, framing it here, you know, 58,000 homeless college students, according to FAFSA, 3 years ago, and you know, still awaiting what the most recent numbers are, but most certainly, you know, the trends are saying that it's going to increase. I think you'll have to hit the. What's that?
You want to use the flipper?
Oh, I have. Oh, I get one of these. I have power.
Wonderful.
So we already know, and people have spoken on it at length here, very eloquently. You know, there's many reasons why a college student would become homeless. You know, home isn't safe. If there's family issues, home isn't supportive. You know, if the family is not supporting how the student is living their life, or home doesn't exist in the first place, and that's you know, where a lot of you know, kids from the foster system are coming from, where they get aged out. I wanted to speak specifically to the issue in Los Angeles. Many of you likely already know that Los Angeles is the homelessness capital of the country. So much so that our mayor had to declare it a state of emergency, which is notable because state of emergencies are really only reserved for natural disasters. So if there's a tornado or a hurricane, this marks the first man-made state of emergency, which tells us that this is one of the most emerging issues of our time. I mean, I'm here to talk about Bruin shelter here, and this is something that's happened within the last year. It's been very quick. in a nutshell, we've gotten UCLA to fund and let us operate a homeless shelter for college students run entirely by UCLA students. And this does a lot of things. The first is it makes the shelter peer-to-peer. A lot of young adults who experience homelessness, they couch surf. Many of them also go to shelters, and when they do, if it's a general shelter, they go in there and they have, mostly a crappy time. They have a high risk of being verbally or physically abused, robbed, and so they decide, they feel safer on the streets. And, to a degree, they're not wrong. So it's really just a lose-lose proposition for these students. So having this peer-to-peer model makes the space feel safe and supportive, and having them actually come to the door and stay is always the first step. The second thing is having this run entirely by college students means we have zero overhead. And when I say zero, it's literal, which makes the shelter impossibly cheap. We can house 10 residents, or we are housing 10 residents now for roughly 25 grand a year. I think that's less than the salary of an entry-level employee of a shelter. And you have 10 of these entry-level employees, you have the mid-level people, so on and so forth. So we're operating on less than one employee. We do know that this model is, it has its drawbacks or its challenges, and in that the students who are running the shelter are not experts. And so we've partnered with experts to tell us how to run a shelter the most effectively and efficiently. So we have homelessness service providers who are training us in how to handle conflict resolution, sensitivity training. We have a lot of other community organizations that are bringing in resources like food and other resources that are more long-term for our residents. And I think one of the most beautiful things about this is because we're with UCLA, the university itself is an entire ecosystem. Mm-hmm. We have the Department of Law, nursing, dentistry, so on, that will come in and give resources to our residents who need it. I think at the same time, the way we've structured it is, and I want to give some more, candid advice on, and be more open on how we've built this, including the tougher parts. If you guys were in the previous session and heard about, sort of the hesitation that comes from administration at first, that's natural. And so one of the things we had to do was we had to be separate from the university, because obviously running a shelter is very high risk, and that's a risk that they weren't willing to adopt at first. But one of the, I think what worked out well is now we have the freedom. When we say we're for homeless college students, we can now loosely define this on our own. And I think the beautiful thing is we've loosened this definition to say, if you've dropped out for a semester or two, we're still calling you a student, and you can stay with us, because it's likely that you dropped out because of the weight of your circumstances. But we're going to try and readmit you when you're ready. And so that's, sort of one, or that's how we're structured, and we feel like with all the challenges that we have, we're able to shore them up with people who are invested in our success. Let's see. What's on the next one?
You have the power.
I have the power, that's right. So here, we have three core missions. Safety and being supportive is our first mission. We want to make sure that the young adults who are staying with us can feel those two things. The second thing is, because it's run entirely by students, implicitly we're training the next generation of social activists, of philanthropists, of innovators in this space. We feel like they have a meaningful experience when they volunteer with us, and having that shape their post-grad, I think is oh, I see, I got one more minute, which is good because I think this is the last one. We're empowering the students who are volunteering with us while serving a real need. And the third mission that we have, and we're trying to put a lot of thought into this, is that we want to be an open source model for other universities to create their own shelters for the marginalized groups that are close to them. So maybe it's not for homeless college students, but maybe if another university wants to have a shelter for refugees or for women experiencing domestic abuse, that's what we want to encourage is for people to take leadership and create their own shelter the way they see fit. It's sort of how Swipe Out Hunger has done it, and we're building off of that. And I mean, they're also from UCLA. Right now we are slated to open in October, and we'll have 10 residents. We're really excited and know that we have a lot of work to do up to that point. But we also recognize that we're standing on the shoulders of a lot of good people's work. Everyone in the room included here. So we're aware that we have a lot to learn from these people, and we're happy to have that conversation. If you guys are interested in learning more about us, you can find us on Facebook, Bruin Shelter, or you can email bruinshelter@gmail.com. We're just happy to absorb knowledge and learn from all you guys. Thanks for the time.
How the conversations about the shelters began, because certainly this compelling presentation shows the necessity for it, but as I've heard yesterday and today, many of us are in situations where the conversation about even opening a food bank scares people away, and if I went home and said a shelter, I know I'd get empathy until we mentioned it to the general public. So how did you cross this shelter barrier and the politics and stuff?
Who's get a personal question?
All of us. At the same time.
I guess I'll start. In terms of how the conversation started, with administration, it was an uncomfortable conversation where we told them what we were planning to do, and the administrators that we talked to, for the most part, they're coming from a good place, and we know that they have their personal limitations on what they can do. So I think approaching the conversation as, what can you do? If they tell us, for instance, you can't be on campus, then we say, okay, well, what can you help us with if you can't give us space? That's generally how the conversation has started. I think Ruben was talking to the point where instead of calling the people out, you got to call them in, and I think that's generally where our conversations begin. Is from hesitation, but trying to sense that where they're coming from and bring them in.
If I may, I think that's a great question, because this is a problem that brings a stigma with it. Whenever you're talking about homelessness, no matter how you sugarcoat it, it's a problem in people's mind. So I would suggest, for example, to refer to the 3 slides that I did on my presentation of who are they. Okay, we need to identify, we need to put a face to the problem. We're dealing with good people here, okay? We're not trying to create, not to repeat myself, a frat house, okay, on campus or something like that. We're just trying to give, in some cases, even honor students an opportunity to stay in school 1, 2, to graduate. And if we achieve those things, then we don't have a real homeless later on in life. So, to answer your question, sir, I would look at the 3 slides that I have, and look at all the different people that are at risk of becoming homeless or are homeless already, and just try to identify that.
One thing that I would add is just the power of student voice. I mean, as administrators and faculty members, I mean, we can talk until we're blue in the face, but when you get a group of students that are active and guided by some administrators and faculty members with how to be solution focused and have some recommendations, I think that's really powerful. And then also backing that up with data. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves.
She set me up perfectly. So I tried to, flush this out before I left. Unfortunately, the person I talked to wasn't around when it started. But when it did start, it was students who were running it. Like, there was no professional staff whatsoever, and it was housed within our student government. They had the funding, and so when students come and they have some money to show up at the table, I think that helps inform the decision and really pushes administrators to find a way to say yes.
And I actually want to echo to Shema what she said. Data, anything is relevant. When I first opened U Access, we had no data. The data from the financial aid office, we have only 3 homeless students on campus. We have 15,000 students on campus at UMass Boston. So that was a number that was so deceiving. So what I did was I had to collect anecdotal data from faculty, from staff, from students. I did a lot of focus group. I did a lot of visits to different departments. I basically spent my 6 months creating this baby by visiting people, talking to people, collecting those data, and then reflect back to the administrators. Because we really had no solid data, and I did a lot of review, everything that you can think of, I did it back in 2011. As a matter of fact, I wasn't even staff yet. I was just a consultant going in to do a needs assessment for UMass Boston to serve disadvantaged population. And when we did that needs assessment, the report came out, guess what? Homeless student and foster care students was on the list. And that's how we came up with the strategy to open U Access. So I think that's really what we try to break that barrier by letting people to voice, just like Shema was saying, that they need to have that voice to talk about what exactly they saw on campus.
Yeah, in the back.
And I'm not sure if any of you would be able to answer this or work with this, but one piece of this issue that I think we've seen on our campus is landlords and how we have a tenant resource center in our city, and it is pretty much open a couple hours every day because of how underfunded their staff is. And so I'm just wondering, legal resources, is that something that you would all looked at with helping students, deal with tenants' rights issues, because that seems to be a big piece of what can sometimes push students into unsafe living situations or needing to leave that situation.
I'm going to start with this one because this plays off what I had before. Oregon, first of all, does have pretty good rental laws, but also this is another thing where students have shown up and decided they want funding, and so we have a office of advocacy where we've got lawyers in there a couple days a week to help students, and they'll write up letters to landlords with official lawyer names on them, and this is again the students deciding that they want to pay for things like this.
Actually, in my office, I work under student affairs, so we had actually the Office of Student Housing. By the way, UMass Boston actually don't have campus housing. Just want to give you some background information. We are urban university, we're commuting university. So that issue happens a lot. And I have a lot of homeless students came to me because they got evicted or because they so-called rent those illegal apartments and they got evicted and they came to me. So what happened is I actually had an advantage, better than anyone I will say, because actually my colleague, the director of student housing, he himself is a lawyer. So a lot of time I refer him to help me out to explain to the students what is tenants' right. We have a whole page on our campus website about tenants' right, and we work with the city of Boston because we don't have campus housing, so all our students actually are tenants by all means. So we work with the city of Boston. They have a hotline. We work with students to talk to the city of Boston hotline to deal with the landlord and tenants issues. So we have that advantage just because my colleague himself is a lawyer.
We take one more. Yeah.
Thank y'all so much for all the work that y'all doing. My question is about, have y'all experienced any difficulties in terms of like the competition around like resources and how there's competing priorities of levels of need of students? And then when you bring them to the forefront, this basic need conversation, something that Sarah referenced yesterday, you know, that's seen as a welfare effort, that's not for us. Because I'm hearing a lot of you talk about campus resources, student funding, departmental funding, school funding. How, if at all, is that showing up for you all? And how do you navigate those conversations?
Yes, I think that one problem comes from the federal government itself, HUD. Not to pick on HUD, sorry, Chase. But this is just an issue that college students are not being identified as a group all on its own, as a category on its own. And what happens is, because of that, we're not eligible to receive federal help. We might get federal help as part of another group. Maybe if the student is part of a foster care system, maybe if he's a veteran, he might get some, okay? But one of the things that we need to do is we need to work with HUD in redefining this, reassessing, you know, because the numbers are so big. I just mentioned in my presentation, if you add the 3 university college systems, you can get to 500,000 people. That's a big, big chunk of people. So we need to make sure that working with HUD, we find a way, whether it's through Congress or whatnot, to make college students a group all on its own with its own needs and rights to receive federal help.
Okay, we can join me in thanking everyone. Thank you.